this is again simplification. The first thing I want to do is I want to rewrite this, and I want to take the numerator and I want to factor it into its factorization. And that means I want to factor 9a squared minus 20a minus 21 into two sets of parentheses. And this is going to end up being 9a plus 7 and a minus 3. So this is 9a plus 7, a minus 3. Now the denominator is factoring by grouping, which is why I really have done these two separately. So I group the first two and the last two. Greatest common factor is a squared, a minus 3, plus. Greatest common factor is 7, a minus 3. Greatest common factor is a minus 3. And once I remove that, I'm left with a squared plus 7. So this is going to be a squared plus 7 times a minus 3. Now you notice that the a minus 3's divide out. In other words, they form a 1. So that your final answer ends up being 9a plus 7 over a squared plus 7. Now I can't reduce the 7's out, and primary reason is that this is a grouping. So either everything comes out or you get something comes out, and then I will reduce what's on the outside, but I can't go inside to get it. There is a set of parentheses because of that addition symbol that's joining those two terms together. So then that ends up being my final answer. The next topic in 7.1 is multiplying fractions. Now, if you remember, in arithmetic, if you were going to multiply a fraction, you would take 1/2, multiply it times 3/4. This would be 1 times 3, 2 times 4. You multiply straight across, or 3/8. And there's no difference between multiplication in arithmetic and multiplication in algebra. This is a grouping. This is a grouping because it's more than one term. And additions and subtractions join the terms together so that if I multiply, it makes it one single fraction. Now I've got something like we did previously where we're now going to factor and reduce. So the first thing I did was to multiply. And then once I multiplied, I'm going to factor and reduce. So x squared minus 1 is the difference of two squares. So it's x minus 1 times x plus 1. And x squared minus 5x plus 6 is x minus 2 times x minus 3. Denominator, x squared minus 4 is the difference of squares. X minus 2 times x plus 2. And x squared minus 2x minus 3 is x minus 3 times x plus 1. Now we look to form ones, because these are all multiplications. I notice I have an x minus 3 and an x minus 3. Those reduce out. In other words, they form a 1. I have an x minus 2 and an x minus 2. Those reduce out, and they form a 1. I have an x plus 1 and an x plus 1. Those form a 1 and reduce out. And what I'm left with is x minus 1 over x plus 2. Same thing's going to happen here. This is a grouping, this is a grouping, this is a grouping, This is a grouping. And when I multiply it, it turns it into a single fraction. So multiply. So that as a single fraction, greatest common factor is 2, 3y plus 1, and then y plus 1 is already lowest factored form. And then y squared minus 1 is the difference of squares, so that's y minus 1, y plus 1. And 3y squared plus y has a greatest common factor of y by itself, and then I'm left with 3y plus 1. Now I look to reduce my fraction. So now I factor and reduce. So that's the next step in the process, is to factor and reduce. So that here's an x minus 1, or y minus 1, and a y minus 1. So those reduce out. A y plus 3y plus 1 and a 3y plus 1, and those reduce out. In other words, form a 1. So this becomes 2 over, and I'm left with a y times y plus 1.